Hey everyone, I hope you all have enjoyed the holidays and that the new year will be good for you all. For today though, I will speak on thoughts on Mufasa, the Lion King. This movie was one of my more anticipated this year despite what happened in the 2019 remake. Walking in, I was cautious, yet admittedly secretly hoping it would be one of the best this year. Part of me knew that it would be difficult for the movie to stand out with movies like Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire and Deadpool and Wolverine having come out this year as well. Still, part of me hoped the creators would have learned from the remake and craft something that honors the legacy of one of the greatest animated movies and stories. As for how this movie turned out, it was better than the remake, though as I've been told that's not much of a bar to raise. Could the movie have been better? Yes, and I'll give some possibilities for how this could have gone about, though these are just my thoughts and feelings. Part of me does wonder if this would have been better as a mini-series with episodes dedicated to the different points in the film. Still, I enjoyed it, I just wish things had been different at times. Let me explain. One thing that the movie did execute well for the most part was showing more expression in the faces of its characters along with better voice acting. We saw fear, hope, love, regret, sadness, and not just anger. There were times when I thought there could have been more facial expressions, as the movie did have certain moments where there wasn't much or any facial expressions when there should have been. Still, the film managed to improve considerably more than its predecessor in its animation. There were times I felt they could have done more with the voice acting and given more lines to certain characters as well as screen time. I wish this was the case with Mufasa's parents, especially his father. We hardly saw his parents, and his father got the least screen time. Mufasa had such a powerful role in Simba's life, and we should have seen what Mufasa's father was like. Keith David is such an incredible actor, and we could have seen him really bring the character to life. This is Keith David we're talking about, the man who did the voice acting for Goliath and Gargoyles, for heaven's sake. Maybe they could have presented the character as who Mufasa desired to be like, similar to how Simba wanted to live up to his father's image as king. Mufasa's father, Masego, was a victim of the more rushed elements of the movie. The first half of Mufasa's story was very rushed. We hardly had time to learn about and come to embrace Mufasa's parents and his time with Taka and his pride. With Mufasa's father, we could have seen Mufasa thinking about him in times of fear and wishing to be strong. Like for example when Mufasa fought Kiros at the end. Maybe Masego could have been respected by the other animals where he and his family lived, driving off other lions, possibly even kings who weren't so noble, from the territory because of his strength, which Mufasa would have inherited. Though this does clash with the matter of Mufasa and Scar/Taka not being biological brothers. Masego wasn't a king, and thus what Mufasa said to Simba didn't happen, or at least it wasn't shown. It just throws the continuity into question. I still have mixed feelings about Mufasa not being of royal blood. How they worked it though as Mufasa being a king who earned his crown rather than just inheriting it was an element I thought wasn't bad. As we saw with Obasi, he wasn't a king that lived up to his crown. Eshe though, who felt like she was a queen, despite not really being treated like one for the most part it seemed. She was the one who said a king needs to earn his crown, and that's what Mufasa did. Masego could have been a king in all but status and blood. An honorable leader and protector of the land we saw him live in. Afia, Mufasa's mother, we did get to see her influence despite not having much screen time. Like Eshe, she was a voice of wisdom and a teacher that influenced Mufasa throughout his life. Though given she wasn't in the 2019 remake, I feel maybe how we saw her in Malele could have been the final part of her story in the land of the living. I'm not saying I wanted her to die, I guess I just have the feeling that continuity should be kept in mind with these stories. Though admittedly I have done worse in my own stories, so I guess I just hope the creators would have had this better in mind than me. Mufasa's time with his biological family just didn't feel fully fleshed out, much like his time with Taka and his pride. We should have gotten to see more of Mufasa being integrated into and living with his pride. Some elements were actually fitting in some ways in comparison to lions in our world. Obasi, much like many male lions, didn't care for or even tolerate a cub that wasn't his blood until Mufasa saved Eshe when a couple of the outsiders attacked. We didn't get to see Mufasa's time trying to adjust to these lions who in part didn't accept him. Even the small matters like where he slept or when he ate when the lionesses made a kill. These small yet key moments would have helped fleshed out these small character details and relationships. Obasi pushing Mufasa to live with the females did add to the development of the titular character as he was personally taught by Eshe and thus giving him wise tutelage and helped shape his personality and skills. Thanks due to lionesses being the more home killers and trackers. Mufasa became more observant and capable in his survival skills and physical abilities, in great contrast to Taka, who was largely sheltered and pampered, much like Obasi, though the king did leave a toxic mark on his son in what he thought made a great king. Deception has been a tool used by people in the past and present, both good and bad for different means. It's just the circumstances involving this part of the story wasn't a wise statement by Obasi. Also, he could have sent the lionesses with Mufasa and Taka, especially Eshe, to help teach and guide them, while also to save their lives, though whether they would have gone or not is hard to say. But back to the titular character, seeing Mufasa learning to hunt, track, and study at the side of the lionesses would have given us more time in seeing him integrate into the pride, and how Eshe came to love and accept him as a son. A longer movie or series would have really helped these pivotal and crucial moments in this origin story. This also would have helped us with having a better understanding of and given a more in-depth portrayal of Kiros and his pride. While we had those few lines of Abasi and Eshe talking about them, and Rafiki giving a short explanation to Kiara about their personalities and motivations, there wasn't much more to their story's origins and build-up. We did see the moments of their more ruthless individuals and the lengths they would go in their quest for revenge. Kiros at times proved to be a dangerous antagonist, given at times he overwhelmed Mufasa, who had been shown to stand his ground and even overpower more than one member amongst this rogue pride, and showed in comparison to be considerably larger and stronger than any other male in the movie. Though I feel this could have been shown especially when Kiros and this pride attacked Eshe and Obasi's. Maybe Kiros could have overpowered all the adult males, including Obasi, almost with ease, to prove just the gaps in power between them and to truly solidify his threat. Kiros talked about how Obasi was unfit both literally and metaphorically to be a king, and seeing the White Line brutally defeat him and the other males would have proven this. We also didn't see much of the relationships between the outsiders. While it was shown that Kiros wanted revenge for his son's death, we mostly saw him as a brutal and ruthless commander to the other lions in his pride. He was a vengeful father who wanted the world for his son, though he also had the other members of his pride almost totally subservient to him, given how they shrank in his presence, typically when he was in a foul mood and they were the only ones around him. So a small insight into what should have been much more fleshed out. The song with Kiros was something I didn't expect. Part of me thought it was almost out of character for him to sing. Though this is a Lion King movie and Scar from the original movie has one of the most iconic songs in the franchise, it did present the sadistic element of his character given how he enjoyed inflicting fear and pain into and upon his enemies and targets. It was kind of odd though that he didn't take part in the killing of the pride, leaving it to the lionesses, from what we could tell. Also, I feel how his story ended wasn't really fitting though. Seeing Mufasa defeat him in front of all the Malele felt like a possible greater moment, though Kiros was too strong for a young Mufasa to defeat on his own. Maybe not my best idea, granted, it just felt maybe Mufasa could have possibly given almost like a speech to him before his defeat. Maybe that's too stereotypical, though given what Rafiki said about the lions being cast out from their original prides, there could have been a possible show of at least partial sympathy towards them, given how they've been treated in their past. Being an outcast is a terrible thing. Mufasa would understand this, and it could directly push the narrative of Mufasa facing what he could have turned out to be like without loving individuals in his life, as Kiros is in some ways a villainous version of Mufasa. I imagine if things had been different, part of me feels they may have accepted him into their pride because Mufasa was an outsider in his own way. The movie does present some depth for the characters, some of it more confusing than others. Taka, aka Scar, was presented as an actually compassionate and sensitive character. He was the reason Mufasa was accepted into Obasi's pride and was a brother to Mufasa. Though admittedly we should have had as much time outside of the songs to see them being brothers, if not more, to show how their bond became so strong. There were a couple of songs that should have been replaced by more character bonding scenes. He sought Mufasa's advice in seeking a relationship with Sarabi, who we also could have seen more in the movie and helped tell her dead mate's story. This really should have been a show and not a movie. It was also thanks to being as intested in life as Mufasa was because of his father's chauvinistic and prideful, no pun intended, tendencies, that he wasn't as brave as his adopted brother, for the most part. I do find Taka betraying, then later saving Mufasa a bit of a surprise. Scar eventually scheming to kill Mufasa and being successful later on felt like his character growth, or deterioration depending on how you view it, was just jumping around. Scar is the greatest villain Disney has ever created, and the creators had a massive responsibility to show how Taka became Scar. Like, this was arguably one of the most important plot elements in any Disney film, because telling the origin story of one of the most iconic villains in all of cinema is a massive undertaking in storytelling. I think one of the best depictions of how Scar became Scar is from a creation in DeviantArt by Albino Raven 666 fan art. I will leave a link to her page in the description below. Though to be clear, you have to have an account to see her ongoing Lion King story, just to let you know ahead of time. I really recommend you all go read it. Her portrayal is one of the reasons why I feel this movie and its story would be better as a series. In comparison, Rafiki's short yet defining part in the origin story felt fitting. There were his eccentric personality traits true to his character and how he interacted with the world around him. In contrast to the outsiders, Rafiki, despite being cast out from the baboon troop, retained and held an incredible wisdom that you would believe a shaman would and should have. He sees and feels the world in a way most can't and don't understand. The emotional and mystical depth that the Mandrill understands speaks to how he guides the animals, willing or needing to hear on their individual paths in life, and also how everything is interconnected. Other characters mistook this for hallucinating and possible mental illness, yet it was spiritual enlightenment. Admittedly, this could have been something Rafiki could have taught the outsiders, or at least those that remained after the deaths of Kiros and some of the other members of his pride. I'm not saying what they did should be cast aside. It just could have been a show of those similar to them. Rafiki, and by extension possibly Mufasa, could have tried to help ease their pain and try to prevent something like this from happening again. Now to the titular character. Thankfully, Mufasa was fairly fleshed out despite the rush through his time as a cub. His time with Afia, Eshe, and Rafiki especially helped shape him as a lion and future king. His mother's sense of hope and belief helped instill Mufasa's desire for a better future that guided him all his life. Eshe helped shape his mind and body. The time with the lionesses crafted him into an exceptional hunter and greatly developed his perception. As the moment with her asking him to tell her what he sensed and felt, being one of the best early moments in the movie. Rafiki instilled his wisdom into Mufasa by connecting to him as another brother and teacher in how they understood the world and their connections to it. Mufasa proved himself as a leader through his strength in body and mind. A lion is a symbol of leadership, honor, courage, and strength, all of which Mufasa embodied. He rallied the animals of Malele into standing together against the outsiders, though admittedly this shouldn't have been as necessary for some like the elephants, rhinos, buffalo, just to name a few. Him having a roar just as fierce and powerful as that of Kiros, arguably more so, despite being younger, and it being used to inspire and rally others instead of terrify, for the most part, spoke to the contents of his character. Mufasa kept his word and loyally stood by Taka and Eshe at different parts, willing to sacrifice himself for the former and try to aid him in courting Sarabi, and without hesitation defending the latter when she was attacked. We saw him willing to fight the outsiders by himself to inspire and defend their would-be victims, and to also avenge those that had fallen to him. His roars felt and sounded like one would expect a leader of the pride to be like. There was so much power and determination in them, echoing across Malele when he was sought to rally the animals there, and once he accepted his role as king. He was what a lion should be. I just wish we'd heard the voice of James Earl Jones as Mufasa in the movie when his spirit appeared at the end to his granddaughter. To sum it up, the movie, while it wasn't fully what it should have been, but it was still enjoyable. To be honest, I did everything from wince to cry when watching it. Some moments did hit fairly hard, and it was largely at the end. Kiara's time of seeing her grandfather's spirit in the sky, and Mufasa being hailed as king, and him accepting his role are a couple of examples. Perhaps it's in part nostalgia for why I reacted like I did, given how much I love the original. It's true it's not perfect, and could have been done better. I still lean towards it should have been a series for things to be more fleshed out. Part of me is surprised we saw so little of Simba and Nala in this movie. Plus, why didn't we see Sarabi helping tell Mufasa's story with Rafiki to Kiara? So while this movie wasn't entirely what it should have been, I feel it was more towards what the 2019 remake should have been, at least in part. Those are my thoughts and feelings about Mufasa and the Lion King. Tell me yours in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching my video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a happy new year, and I'll see y'all next time.